Thank you for joining us here at the First Alert Desk on Atlanta News First Plus. As you can see to my right, a live picture inside the Georgia State Capitol, where we are moments away from hearing from Georgia Governor Brian Kemp in what is expected to be an unveiling of a major tax policy initiative aimed at putting more money back in your wallet. So I want to talk about this just before the governor approaches this podium here. There is not a lot of detail on what exactly this major tax policy initiative is. That is the description that his office gave us ahead of this news conference. But as you can see, several members of state legislature in the background getting ready to stand behind the governor as he delivers the details of this initiative. We know that Governor Kemp will be joined by Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, Speaker of the House Jon Burns, and other members of the General Assembly, some of which you can already see here today. So we're going to carry those remarks in full for you on Atlanta News First Plus. Kemp is expected to discuss a legislative priority, to put more money in the pockets of Georgia residents. That is directly from his office. So for those of you that are joining us, especially if you're a resident, this likely to impact you based off of that description. Again, his office not giving a whole lot of detail ahead of this news conference, but saying that all will be explained in these remarks today. The announcement comes after Kemp signed a series of tax bills to offer residents tax relief. That was back in April. House Bill 1015 dropping the state's income tax from 5.75 to 5.39%, as well as House Bill 1021 increasing the amount of the dependent exemption tax credit in Georgia. So a couple tax initiatives filed by the Georgia legislative body by Governor Kemp aimed at helping to bring relief to Georgia taxpayers. There's also the very popular gas tax suspension that the governor enacts every once in a while when the state is in need of some help. We saw that with Helene recently, and now these tax bills and tax initiative takes the center stage in what is expected to be good news for Georgia residents, according to Kemp's office. So, again, for those of you that are just joining us, we're moments away from hearing remarks from the Georgia governor himself, Brian Kemp, announcing what his office has described as a major tax policy initiative that has become a legislative priority for the governor to put more money in the pockets of Georgia residents throughout his administration. Again, among the people standing in front of you today are members of the General Assembly. We are expecting to see also Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and the Speaker of the House, Jon Burns, who may deliver remarks in addition to Governor Kemp. This news conference was called for 1:45. It is currently 1:48. We do expect those remarks to begin any minute now. Our Atlanta News First reporter, Abby Kasouras, right there behind the camera, who will have a full report on what this major tax policy initiative means for you later on Atlanta News First. Now, ahead of that, we do want to join you here live and bring those remarks of Governor Brian Kemp. Again, just waiting for the governor to approach the podium here and begin to explain the details of this tax policy initiative. You can see him shaking hands there with members of the General Assembly and the legislative body as he makes his way over to the podium.
How you doing, sir?
When you check, thank you so much. Wrong can go. She takes a lot more than I see.
Of course.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank y'all so much for joining us today for a great announcement that will impact all hardworking Georgians. I want to thank the nation's best First Lady, Marty Kemp, for being here with us today. Also want to thank our Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, Speaker of the House Jon Burns, Chairman Blake Tillery, who worked with us on this, and Chairman Matt Hatchett, our appropriations chairman. We appreciate them and a lot of other incredible partners in the legislature that you see standing behind me. And thanks to that partnership, our conservative approach to budgeting and the historic job creation that we're seeing across our state. I'm proud to be able to stand alongside these great partners to announce that we will again give the workers of our state a tax rebate in the coming year. As we prepare to head into the holiday season and as many Georgians continue to recover and rebuild from recent storms and hurricanes, the people you see up here today continue to look for ways that we can give them relief. We all know that even if inflation has fallen, high prices have not. Families see that every day when they go to the grocery store or the gas pump. And that's one of the reasons I suspended the state gas tax in the wake of the Hurricane Helene, because people shouldn't have to deal with that added burden, especially in the wake of tragedy. I want to again thank the partners that you see behind me and many others who are not, the members of the General Assembly, again for their support of that measure. Because whether it's the tax rebates we've given in prior years, the homeowner tax relief grant we passed last year, the multiple times we've suspended the state gas tax, enacting the largest income tax cut in state history, and the acceleration of that cut that we announced last December, or any other relief effort we've made, the legislature is a key partner. And we're able to work together on these measures and get them passed because the people up here share a fundamental belief. And it's something that I've said before, and now I'm going to say it again. This isn't the government's money, it's yours. That money belongs to hardworking Georgians. It belongs to small businesses that drive our economy. It belongs to the farmers and families who were devastated by Hurricane Helene. It belongs to the rural communities to help grow opportunity. And it belongs in the pockets of men and women throughout our state who are struggling due to bad policies coming out of Washington, D.C. And while we cannot fix everything they've broken, our hope is that this measure we're announcing today will help in some way. Modeled after the rebates we've enacted previously, this proposal will return $250 to a single tax filer, $375 to a single filer who is head of household, and $500 to a married couple filing jointly. Now, what does this translate to for Georgia families? That rebate means helping pay the rent or car payment. It means school clothes for their kids or a shopping cart full of groceries. It means paying down credit card debt, which people are living off of thanks to bad national policies, and many other possibilities for the people of our state. In total, this proposal will save Georgia taxpayers over $1 billion. And when you add that to the other relief measures I listed earlier, together this group will have saved or returned over $6.6 billion for hardworking Georgians. I am proud of that work, and these partners up here should be proud of it too. I want to give a special thank you to the Office of Planning and Budget Director Rick Dunn and his team who have worked tirelessly on these and many other proposals to make sure that we're on sound financial footing to get them done. But I also want to make it clear, today's announcement is not the end of our search for policies that will give relief, especially to those impacted by the recent storms. In the coming weeks, my team will continue our conversation with legislative leaders on how we can best help those who were hit so hard by these storms. So again, I want to thank the men and women behind me, those that aren't with us, and I look forward to continuing our work together in the months and years ahead. With that, I want to turn it over to one of our key partners that you'll hear from, our Lieutenant Governor, Burt Jones. Governor.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Governor. I just want to echo what the Governor said, and I am so thankful to be here with the fine leadership, Speaker of the House, who I have a wonderful working relationship with, and his House leadership, as well as Matt's appropriations. Matt Hatchett is here today, our Senate leadership here. These guys are wonderful to work with, and they always have Georgians' minds. Their hearts and minds are always on the citizens of this state. Blake Tillery couldn't be with us here today, but he always works very hard on the budget. And time again, this governor and this administration has always looked for ways to give back to the citizens of Georgia, whether it's in tax rebates or whether it's a suspension of the gas tax. The governor has the people of Georgia at the forefront of everything that he does, and I'm just proud to be here with him and the Speaker and all of the legislative leadership here today, because we could not do it without them, but it takes the leadership of the governor, who always is willing to step forward and do what's right on behalf of the citizens of this state. So, Governor, thank you again, and Speaker, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you to Lieutenant Governor Jones, Governor Kemp, First Lady Marty Kemp. Thank you, leaders from the Senate and the House. Thank you for the impact you all have been making and you do continue to make. Well, good afternoon. It's a great day to be a Georgian, isn't it? I think it is. And you know, it's a great day to celebrate yet another year of announcing that we're returning money to where it belongs, the pockets of hardworking Georgians. Governor, thanks to your leadership, we've gotten pretty good at making these announcements, haven't we? Well, I think we know that when the failed policies of Washington have caused record high inflation, out of control prices at our grocery stores and at the gas pump, and placed a financial strain on all Americans, here in Georgia, we've written a different story. Our strong conservative leadership, strategic fiscal policies have created a historic, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of a $19 billion budget surplus. And we're proud that we've been able to continue investing in everything along the way, from health care and education to infrastructure and workforce development. All the while, cutting taxes and saving Georgia families and businesses millions of dollars. But you know, this didn't happen overnight. This is a result of strong conservative fiscal policies, leadership from Republican governors and the General Assembly, these men and women behind me, and an unwavering commitment to the taxpayers of this state, the great state of Georgia. Thank you, Governor Kemp, Lieutenant Governor Jones, and the members here with us today, my colleagues in the House and Senate, for delivering the economic relief for all Georgians. But I want to change gears just a little bit and tell you why we're excited to celebrate this relief for Georgians. Hope we also remember those across our state, and specifically the Southeast, who have been devastated by severe weather for the last several weeks, and who are still waiting on critical relief they need to bring rebuilding to their lives, their homes, and their communities. Yesterday, we announced we joined with speakers from around the Southeast, from Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, and South Carolina, to request federal aid in the form of 3 simultaneously approved block grants for private citizens and companies, agriculture, and our infrastructure. These block grants can be appropriated to the affected states and distributed quickly and efficiently by those states to the areas of our states that need it the most. Georgians and our neighbors across the Southeast are facing generational impacts to our homes, to our businesses, and our way of life. But our message remains the same. We will be with those citizens, our people, every step of the way to complete this journey of recovery for all the citizens of Georgia. This group, the leadership of our governor, we won't rest until we're certain that we all have received every possible resource and asset available to our communities to help them rebuild. I want to thank our federal delegation. They work closely with us, especially Congressman Austin Scott, Congressman Rick Allen, and Congressman Buddy Carter, who have been advocating tirelessly for our agricultural industry in this state, but also to everyone across the state who continues to put their lives, private citizens, out there to hold on for our citizens to help those who are in need. I like to think about it this way: neighbors helping neighbors. That's what our state and our people are all about. Thank you all for being here, and thank you all for allowing us to get this message out. Governor Kemp, I'm going to turn it back over to you, but I want to first say to you and the First Lady how important it has been to me and members of the General Assembly and the people of Georgia to see y'all out visiting and out being with the people of this state through these tough times. I don't think y'all know how much it means to us in these impacted areas, but we're most grateful, and may God continue to bless the two of you and bless our great state of Georgia. Governor Kemp.
Well, thank you, Speaker Burns, for those kind remarks. Lieutenant Governor Jones, thank you for being here and for your leadership and those that are behind us. I'll just say, echoing on what the Speaker said, there's many members of the General Assembly, many standing behind me right now, that have been hauling supplies to hard-hit areas across our state. Other business leaders across the state, local communities, just incredible work people have done, people that have voluntarily flown goods into our areas, but also taking them to other states. And I just cannot thank all of our first responders and just our community in general that has been going in beyond to support not only those in Georgia that were being ravaged by these storms, but also our neighbors in Florida, North Carolina, and other states. And with that, I also just want to, before we close and take your questions, just say thank you again for being here, and just want to continue to urge all Georgians and us praying for those touched by the recent tragedies in our state. As exciting as an announcement like this is, we know that there has been much heartbreak in this state over the last several weeks, including this weekend, with those that were affected by Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton, and something that happened much more recently on our coast, the collapse of the gangway on Sapelo Island this past weekend. Marty and I were heartbroken to learn of that tragedy on Saturday, and we've been kept up to date as the investigation remains very active and ongoing. But throughout it all, I know we all ask for all Georgians to continue to pray for those that have been affected, those that are lost and injured, and we'll continue to keep them in our thoughts and prayers. I also want to just ask all Georgians to say a prayer for the family of Sheriff Cullen Talton, but also a prayer of thanks for a great public servant, a great lawman, our nation's longest-serving sheriff that passed away this weekend. Quite an individual and quite a community leader, and someone our state was very proud of. So we'll continue to keep all those folks in our thoughts and prayers, and with that, we'll be glad to open it up for questions. Arch. Well, we're as you know, been steady working on that. We passed the largest state income tax cut in state history. We have a lot of other tax benefits in our state that benefit our farmers and our producers, our certain other industries like film and manufacturing. But I think I can speak for this group behind me. We are all committed to continuing to cut our state income tax, and stay tuned for the second Monday in January. Well, the thing about what we're doing today, this funding will be done through the amended budget, so this is one-time money. This is not something that will, go on in perpetuity that we'll have to pay for the next year and the next year after that. This will be a one-time move that we're making to send money back to the folks that sent it to us, and we didn't need it all, so we're going to send it back to you. I know we're committed to continuing to cut taxes, but this is a way for us to use our excess surplus and get it back in the hands of the people that we believe that know how to spend it the best. And that is our hardworking families that send us those tax dollars to start with. And, like I said in my remarks and the other legislative leaders have talked about, we've experienced 40-year high inflation over the last couple of years. And even though inflation is starting to level out, costs are still high. If you're trying to buy your kids a meal or take them out to eat or go buy groceries or deal with rent that's increased, insurance costs that have gone up, car payments are going up, the cost of cars are going up. All these things, having an extra $500 in the pocket of hardworking Georgia families allow them to deal with credit card debt or just help them with their expenses on everyday life. Well, we're going to continue to work with the partners that you see standing with me today. This is just one of the things that we're working on. We got a long way to go to January. I think if you look back at how we've used one-time money from excess reserves that we have because of fiscally conservative budgeting while funding our priorities like teacher pay raises, law enforcement pay raises. As I mentioned here, we've given or saved Georgia taxpayers over $6.6 billion already. We put an additional $1.6 billion into our transportation and infrastructure and freight and logistics network last year, and we've spent a lot of one-time funds to make state government more efficient and do things that we'll get generational benefit out of. The worst mistake we could make would be to grow government with one-time money, because like you're seeing now with the federal government that gave everybody and their brother federal money during the pandemic, new programs got created. Now the feds are cutting the money off, and everybody's screaming, you're cutting my budget. I can't fund my program. And we're not going to do that to the taxpayers of this state. We're not going to do that to future legislators or to future governors. We're going to continue to be fiscally conservative. But the reason we are here today is because you taxpayers that are out there watching this, we trust you better than the government to have this money back in your pocket. And we're going to continue to look for ways to do that. Well, I would just say, from my perspective with FEMA here in the state, from what I know, they were embedded with us a couple of days before the hurricane. We've had a great working relationship with them. We had issues originally when we only had 11 counties that were declared in the federal emergency disaster relief efforts. But I made well known now, I made a call to the White House to the administrator, and that was rectified. We've continued to work with them. But let me just also say I am so proud of our state response to this. We have a great team. They were ready when this storm came. They literally, not only our folks, but our private sector partners, our utilities and other contractors we have, non-government agencies like the Red Cross and all our state assets that were moving in literally right after the storm. This was a massive storm. A lot of people don't really understand how big this storm was. Georgia Power previously, in their worst storm ever in our state, had to replace 1,700 power poles. This storm, they had to replace over 8,000. This was like a 200-mile tornado that went through our state that was actually a hurricane, unprecedented Cat 2 hitting our state and remaining a Cat 1 for as long as it did. And as much devastation as we saw and as much work that we have done and have to do, the people of our state know that the people behind me, our first responders, our state agencies, working with our federal partners, the folks on the ground from our local communities and our local emergency managers, they knew that everybody out there was giving everything that they could, and we're committed to continuing to do that as we recover, especially from Hurricane Helene. Well, there definitely is. I would say this, we continue to work with all these partners behind me, the legislative leadership on what we're doing. I had a meeting this morning with our budget director, Rick Dunn, and his team. They're looking at, what we did for Hurricane Michael, looking at ideas that we're hearing from people on the ground, and so we're starting to dig into that now. I will say the one good thing about the position we're in versus when Michael hit is our fund balances are so much better than they were back then. So we have a lot more flexibility with money that we have in certain places to help us get through to where we can get the legislature back in. And I can assure you, I think everybody, I can speak for everybody up here, but we look to move quickly the first part of the legislative session on storm packages. And as a matter of fact, today we took action in the State Properties Commission on a lease for a tower for a news agency down in Savannah that lost their tower. So we're going to allow them to lease Georgia Public Broadcasting Tower. Man, we approved that today. So in a lot of ways, we're already working on things to try to be helpful, and we'll continue to do that. Thank y'all very much for being here.
All right, so you just heard from Governor Brian Kemp, as well as Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, as well as the General Assembly that you saw behind both the governor and lieutenant governor as they announced this major tax policy initiative that they described, promising new state tax income rebates. And what that means for your particular wallet. If you are a single tax filer, that would mean a refund of up to $250, $375 for single filers who are the head of their household, and $500 to married couples who file jointly. Now, if this sounds familiar to you, this might be because this came up in 2022 and 2023, where similar tax rebates were issued, costing upwards of $1 billion, if not over $1 billion for the state. Georgia taxpayers seeing that nice refund on their tax return filings. Again, this comes, as the governor said, he is focused on having a conservative approach to the state's budget. And he said, I think profoundly, what stood out from this was what he said about this, quote, "This isn't the government's money, it's yours. The money belongs to hardworking Georgians." And that, he said, is why he is pushing for this proposed rebate. Again, not guaranteed just yet. It is still has to go through the process of the General Assembly and be approved through the Assembly, but we are likely to see that approval being granted, considering that Republicans aim to keep the majority that they have in the state legislature. So once again, a massive rebate that would be over $1 billion for the state, but could mean upwards of $500 back in your wallet if you are a Georgia taxpayer. The governor's office saying that this was a big initiative, but it is not their only initiative, and he will continue to look for opportunities to put money essentially back in to the pockets of, as he described, hardworking Georgians. So we're going to stay on top of this on Atlanta News First and Atlanta News First Plus. Our Atlanta News First reporter, Abby Kasouris, will have a full report and breakdown of what this means for you live at 5.